This is Professor Ali El-Bahrawy from Ain Shams University. The title of my presentation is Effects of Drought, Sea Level Rise and Saline Intrusion in the Nile Delta on Water Food Security in Egypt. The sequence of my presentation follows the sequence of the subject in the title itself. With drought, I start with an old story of the fall of the old kingdom of Egypt due to occurrence of a number of lower than average inundation events. This slide shows the effect of flood on the fertility of the agricultural land and on the hydraulics of the river itself. The series of slides, starting with this one, shows the fluctuation of annual and the intervariability of the Nile discharge through a long period of time as shown. We go from this flood values in billion cubic meter for the Nile into the very little rainfall in millimeters in Egypt. This is over a period of time, and this is around the year, the months of the year, and the other one is the intervariability of the rain of the month of January being the maximum rainfall rain, and you can see the very modest millimeters that fall on Egypt in January. More frequent drought in Egypt is expected because Egypt is an arid region and climate change would affect the flow coming to Egypt. With respect to sea level rise, this map shows you the topography of the Nile Delta region, indicating the areas near or below mean sea level. At the left of the map, we found Alexandria, which is the main port, one of the important coastal cities in Egypt. A recent study shows the effect of sea level rise on the areas at risk in Alexandria and the population to be displaced, in addition to the loss of employment in agriculture, tourism, and industry. Groundwater extraction is an important element that is interacting with sea level rise and the seawater intrusion. Groundwater extraction would lead to salination of groundwater, and saltwater intrusion will threaten the groundwater resources. To study the relation between the sea level rise and the increased groundwater extraction, there is a new research with 6 future scenarios for the around 13 governorates in the Nile Delta, as you can see in this map, where they found that population is very closely related to groundwater extraction. They increase almost with the same rate together. And these are the 6 scenarios characterized by sea level rise in meter and the extraction in million cubic meter per year, and a target year 2100 and 2500. These are the groundwater fresh volume in million cubic meter per year in selected 8 governorates. We found that 3 governorates use more fresh groundwater than the other governorates, which is Gharbiya, El-Bahrawy, and Sharqiya. This map shows the proportional different groundwater types as fresh, brackish, light brackish, and saline water in 5 governorates from Kafr Sheikh, Bahira, Munufiyya, Damietta, and Sharqiya. With saline intrusion, this infograph shows you the movement of saltwater interface under the increased saltwater intrusion due to over abstraction and sea level rise. A map of the delta, but this time it shows the salt affected soils due to salinity, characterized as none, moderate, and high saline soils, in addition to the locations of the pumping stations for reuse and drainage, because there is a direct relation between drainage and salinity of soil. Here is a schematic representing the cross-section in the middle of the delta, showing the transition from saltwater zone to mixing zone to freshwater zone. Another 3 cross-sections showing the 3 zones in the previous slide. And this table is important because it shows that in the delta, where most of the agriculture takes place, where the water come from. They come from Nile, from groundwater, from reused drainage, and from drain water. I converted this map for the 13 governorates in the delta shown in this map into a graph to show you that most of the irrigation water is Nile water. Some come from groundwater and some from reused drainage, and very little water in Alexandria and Kafr Sheikh from rainfall. This map shows the average drainage rates in millimeter per day, and it is associated to this map that shows average salinity of drainage water in the Nile Delta expressed in milligram per liter during the same period of time. With water food security, there are different subjects relating food security issues like interdisciplinarity, transboundary, climate change, population, agricultural land, food production, and synergies with other trends. As known, water security is an interdisciplinary issue that takes into account biophysical, infrastructural, institutional, political, social, and financial issues, and it requires interdisciplinary collaboration across sectors, communities, and political borders. An important issue in water security is transboundary, because transboundary water security is create enormous challenges, and the objective to have water for all riparian countries is to ensure coordination and dialogue between the sovereign states. And there are in the globe, across the globe, numerous examples that demonstrate that shared water provide opportunities for cooperation, because we like to ensure that water security is achieved for all users, whether upstream or downstream. Climate change and water security depend upon a lot of factors, including geographic location, features, conditions of water availability, and a lot of things. And it will threaten existing water infrastructure, making societies more vulnerable to extreme water-related events. Most people will be affected by climate change because it will disrupt their food supply chains. In the Nile Delta, more people means more demand, because Nile Delta is the most populated part of Egypt, and water security will become critical, not just for food production, but also for food utilization. It's also noticed that poor people are the most affected. Why? Because these people have problems and like poor access to basic services, therefore they will be most at risk. Another issue is water use efficiency in agriculture, because water used for agriculture in Egypt represent 86% of the resources, and climate change will increase agricultural need for water, and this will create more pressure on the agricultural sector. Another issue is pressure on agricultural land. Egypt is characterized by fragmented ownership of lands and the practices of inheritance that will create small areas of farms with time. But we can think that we can solve this problem by increasing the land productivity in the small farms if they cultivate horticulture, but this may not be feasible because farming society in Egypt are without technical expertise and they don't have necessary finance. Again, urbanization is an issue, and the government now is taking very bold actions against encroaching on agricultural land. And there is an outstanding example for the Gharbiya governorate where 30% of agricultural land will be lost to urban sprawl between the years 2012 and 2030. We talk here about food production that is affected by high temperature and land degradation and desertifications. Small producers, as we mentioned before, are most vulnerable to increasing climate shocks. This is an example of the self-sufficiency of main food commodities, wheat, milled rice and maize in Egypt, and shows the importance of the adaptation action to reduce these adverse effects. There are trends synergizing with climate change that makes or creates a lot of unexpected risks. The presentation in 12 minutes tried to review with you the effects of climate change causing drought, sea level rise, and saline intrusion in the Nile Delta, and its consequences on water and food security in Egypt. Thank you.